There was a woman in Atlanta that was part of a trafficking group. There was a group of women, they refer to them as a stable. So when one pimp has multiple women, it's the stable of women. And this woman came to a point where she decided she was done with this lifestyle and she was gonna plan her escape. And one time when the trafficker went to buy like some cigarettes and beer and probably some condoms, she was like, this is my opportunity. So she ran away. It was late on a Monday night, and she said, all right, where do I go? All my bridges are burned. I don't have a family support system. She went to the Varsity on North Avenue. So I've been there. I know that spot. And she was flipping through her phone, and the people in her phone are like other women in the life, other pimps, people called tricks, which are like your regular clientele that buy sex. And that's her list of contacts in her phone. And she thought, well, this one trick was nice to me. I'll call him and see if he can help me. So she calls him. She says, look, I ran away from my pimp. I don't know who to turn to. You've always been nice to me. Can you help me out? And he said, yeah, stay put. I'll be there soon. And then the first call he made after that was to her pimp. And he said, hey, I know where your girl is at. They struck up an arrangement with each other. He picked up the pimp, drove up to that back entrance of the Varsity. The trick went inside. The girl just fell into his arms. I can't believe you came for me. Thank you so much. And she walks out the back door, and the trafficker's waiting there. He grabs her by the hair, throws her in the back seat of the car, drives back together to the hotel. He takes her in the room. The other women are there. He throws her down on the floor and he says, y'all beat her up until I tell you to stop. And so they're all beating her. And this, psychologically, you can imagine there's two pieces to that. One is, if any of the rest ever try to leave, they're gonna remember what happened to this one who tried to leave. And it also, in making them be the ones to do the violence, it says, you're not loyal to each other, you're loyal first and foremost to me. So when he tells them to stop, to humiliate her, he then puts her into a dog kennel that he had in the room, and he closes her in, and he takes a picture, and he texts it out to some of his other buddies that are in the same lifestyle. And one of them happens to be an informant for the Atlanta Police Department. So they let the police know. The police come to raid the hotel. The night manager on duty is on the take. So he calls the guy and says, hey, police are coming in, heads up. And they catch him trying to escape out of the room. They're able to free this young lady, but this was back at a time before there were support services available. So in that story, there's so many elements you see. Where do I go when I'm ready to escape and try to get who do I call, right? Where do I go to start the journey of healing? Because it's not just about getting rescued and getting out, it's then how do I start to put my life back together? And our organization is meant to be a response to all three of those pieces. Where do I go? Who do I call? How do I start putting my life back together? Again, that didn't exist for her at the time, but by the grace of God, it exists now. My name is Jeff Shaw, and I serve as the Chief Program Officer for a nonprofit that's headquartered in Atlanta called Frontline Response International. And our mission is to basically respond to people who are in crisis, primarily in the spaces of homelessness and sex trafficking. I think the biggest myth that exists in the United States that keeps us from seeing and responding to sex trafficking is our misunderstanding of prostitution. Because what I've seen over the last 12 years is we want to know who deserves help and who doesn't deserve help. And we say someone who's a victim deserves help. Someone who appears to us to have made a choice doesn't deserve help. That's typically how we kind of cut the line, is who made a choice, who didn't have a choice. And I think the more I've done this work, the more stories that I've heard. We've served over 1,500 victims of sex trafficking here in Atlanta and throughout the US, is that when you see someone, maybe they're on a street corner or posting an ad in a motel on the internet or working within the sex trade, and you don't see someone holding a gun to their head, they're not chained up in a basement, you think, well, they must be doing it because they want to do it. But then when you look at the research, women that have been surveyed that are in the sex industry across not only the US, but in 11 different countries, 89% say, I would leave if there was any way out. And so most often what we don't see is all these women saying, this is what I want to do, this is empowering for me. we see 9 out of 10 women saying, if there is any way out for me, I would take it. When we're thinking about how do you end the systems of exploitation and oppression that allow sex trafficking to continue to happen, the simple economics are there's not supply unless there's demand. So why is sex being supplied? It's because there's men who are purchasing it on the other side. A big part of that foundation of how do we get to that point as a society is the prevalence of pornography now. And the fact that at younger and younger ages, 13, 11, 8 years old, boys and girls both are being exposed to pornography, whether by accident or on purpose. And pornography is becoming the new sex educator, and it's conditioning sex and sexuality that it's transactional, that it's selfish, that it's meaningless, and that we take from each other, and that women don't actually get to speak up about what they do or don't want. The whole, this outbreak of rape culture that we're seeing, where women say no, or they're drunk or they're passed out or whatever, and men and boys are still taking advantage because porn says no matter how much they don't seem to want it, or how painful it might seem, or how degrading it might be, that they actually do want it. Like at the end of the day, they want it. So don't worry about those things. And that's how our view of consent is being formed, through violent pornography. And anybody who's seen it knows that internet pornography today is not the naked person in a magazine of the past. It's violent, it's degrading, it's hardcore, it's dangerous stuff. And I think if we really want to see the end of sex trafficking, we also have to pay serious, intentional attention to pornography as well.